You're listening to the 49 Carats podcast, a 49ers Goldmine production with Stephanie Sanchez.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another edition of the 49 Carats podcast. I'm your host, Steph. It is Wednesday, June 5th. You may notice that I'm back with my Wednesday co-host for Wacky Wednesday, Coach Dezi. Dezi, how you doing?
Woo, y'all. It has been a wild week, and I just want to shout out all the graduates of Sun Lake High School. My firstborn graduated yesterday, so we've been in party mode over here at the Zevin household.
If I did have a clapping sound effect, but I do have, this GIF here for the YouTube viewers to see. So let's give it up to all the graduates. My niece also graduated from the 8th grade this past weekend, so I was in the Bay to celebrate that. So yeah, shout out all the graduates of all kinds, even the kindergarten graduates. Like there's so many stages of life where we graduate. So shout out to all of them. And Dezi, glad to have you back. We got quite the bit of an information dump, I think, in the last couple of days. And I was just telling you how kind of annoying it is. I say that, but in a few days, we're going to enter this very slow period of about 40 days where there's going to be no information. So I guess this is better than nothing. But we're going to break down all of the information that we've gotten from minicamp so far. There's been a lot of press conferences between today and yesterday so far. So me and Dezi are going to, break down some of the key quotes from those pressers, as well as talk about some news that we haven't yet on the 49K. And let's just start with the big one. I mean, Christian McCaffrey, who we had been speculating, of course, he's waiting for his deal. He gets his raise. And, this is very much deserved for Christian. It's a 2-year extension for him. He got some guarantees, which he didn't have before in his deal. So what did you think about this news, Dezi, when you saw it?
I thought about the GIF you just put up there for the graduates. All right.
Put it up again. Let's go.
There it is, man. I mean, shout out to Christian McCaffrey. He earned every single part of this contract. I'm okay with being wrong and thinking he was just in wedding mode, but let's hear it for the boy. I mean, he's really he's the offensive player of the year, right? Like he earned his flowers here, and definitely the bag that he's getting along with it. So guaranteed money. I love that for him. I love that for running backs. I know they get the short end of the stick oftentimes, but he's doing it big for himself and for the position for sure.
Yeah, and this actually turned out well for the 49ers. I think everyone's first reaction is like, oh God, they had to pay someone else. This means they can't pay, X player. I think we all know who that X player is at this point. Brandon Aiyuk's the only one left to get an extension here. But what the 49ers were able to do with his new deal was actually in the first 2 years of his contract, they brought his cap hit down to what it was supposed to be. In 2024, in his old deal, he was set to make $14.1 million. That was going to be his cap hit, I should say. In 2025, it was going to be $14.3 million. Now with his new deal, 2024, his cap hit is $6.7 million. That's a difference of $7.4 million that they're saving for 2024. And in 2025, with his new deal, he'll be making $9.8 million, which will be a saving of $4.5 million compared to what he was due to make. And so this is, in the short term, this is good flexibility that this deal offers for the 49ers. And of course, it's a 2-year extension for McCaffrey. And I believe there's some void years on his deal as well. I believe 2028 is a void year. And then 2027, that cap hit does shoot up quite a bit, $27.5 million. But by that point, I think the hope is that the cap just continues to grow league wide, new deals, new TV deals, all the stuff, Taylor Swift effect, all that. and hopefully the 49ers will be able to take that blow, better in 2027. But yeah, as we know, the way they stagger out these contracts makes sense. This definitely has Brandon Aiyuk in mind, I would think. This definitely has Brock Purdy's deal in mind, I think. And so looking at how it all breaks down, I think this looks pretty good for the 49ers, and I think it looks good for Brandon Aiyuk as well.
Yeah, I mean, this is just a situation where, okay, this is now another player on the 49er roster that has gotten a deal. And there's one that we're all just on pins and needles for. And I think you'll bring up another topic that will also lend us to have to talk about Brandon Aiyuk, but I'll just wait till we get to that little nugget because it's on our list.
It is definitely on our list. Now, just one more thing on Christian McCaffrey. Kyle Shanahan was asked, Christian McCaffrey is going to be like 30, 31 by the time this deal ends. Like, how does Kyle feel about that? And pretty much, I'm not going to read off the whole answer, but, Kyle did say Christian's one of the more talented people he's ever been with in his life. That's not surprising. I mean, I could definitely believe that. And then another thing he said that really struck me was Christian's always going to be a good football player until he decides not to be. So he really highlights the work ethic that Christian McCaffrey has and how that he's not worried really about him falling off, when he turns 30, like a lot of running backs do, which I think we know Christian McCaffrey is in a league of his own as far as work ethic, as far as that fear of like him falling off a cliff when he gets to a certain age. Like, I don't know. I'm not as worried about that with Christian as maybe I would be with another running back. But that also brings into the discussion, should the 49ers dial back his carries? Kyle did talk about having to protect Christian from himself and doing a better job at maybe limiting his touches a little bit. But do you buy that? Like, do you think that we actually see Kyle Shanahan limit Christian McCaffrey's touches, or just the amount of snaps he gets? I always feel like he can't help himself. Like, yes, he might say these things, but it's like this toy that you have, and since you got it, it's been your favorite toy, and you just cannot stop using it because it's awesome. That's Christian McCaffrey. I just feel like Kyle can't help himself.
Yeah, I think much like all of us. So Kyle, if you do listen, this isn't like just you, but like sometimes all of us need to be protected from ourselves, Kyle included. So, in some cases, it's been a little bit of watching the overuse production in our opinions of the running back position for the 49ers has been something that has been concerning, not just with Christian McCaffrey, long before he even showed up. We were kind of like, okay, let's just tear up the next one. I do think Christian McCaffrey takes such good care of his body that the way that he moves, I think he's less injury prone than other specific body types. So I think this is a win-win all the way around. And I think all football players, especially on this level, is wired to be out there. They want action. They want plays. They want snaps. So I do think, you saw his helmet was getting all tweaked up on the sideline, and he's like, get me back in. Like, I think he missed one play or something and was dying to get back in there. So, I think there is truth to that. And I think that's also why Kyle likes him, right? He sees, people that we tend to like. We see a little bit of ourselves in a lot of cases. And I think he's a baller. He wants to be out there. Who wouldn't want to? And I think that's the respect that that's the work ethic that he is. And that's why we all adore him. But also, yeah, maybe he does need to be protected from himself.
Yeah, I think so. And if he gets mad, it's like, deal with it, pal. Like, I think there needs to be some of that too. Cause I think so far it's been like, oh, well, Christian doesn't want to come out. Okay, fine. Like, we'll let you stay in there. But to cap the Christian McCaffrey talk, he most definitely deserve this probably more so than anyone else on the team. And so congrats to Christian on that. Now, he wasn't the only guy to get paid. We're going to talk about another player, not on the 49ers, but Justin Jefferson. Vikings signed him to a 4-year extension. This was another shoe we were waiting to have drop. I guess we were probably hoping that Brandon Aiyuk would be the shoe to drop before Justin Jefferson, but Justin Jefferson gets his deal done. This is an unprecedented deal for him. Huge money, $110 million guaranteed. That blows all of the other wide receiver deals out of the water. And so looking at, how the top wide receiver contracts break down now, Justin Jefferson is at the top by a pretty wide margin in both average per year and the guarantees, as I mentioned. So do you believe that this could impact Brandon Aiyuk's asking price at all, or what he eventually asked for? Because, we know this is the ceiling, right?
Absolutely. I mean, and he's not the only one. People are just getting paid left and right. So I think this just adds in. It's another level of like, hey, this one just got paid. Hey, this one just got paid. And I'm not going to lie, guys. I know I've been talking on here about, we got to get his mama on here and talk about this, but I am starting to get a little worried. I'm not going to lie. Like there are, especially with Jawan Jennings getting signed, I'm kind of like, okay, Jawan Jennings got signed. What is happening with Brandon Aiyuk? And then there's been some other reports that I've read from other reputable sources that are talking about trades could still be in the mix as late as November, right? So I'm a little clinched right now. If I'm being honest, people, I'm a little clinched, not happy right now.
Yeah, I think the optimism that maybe we had a month ago, even a week ago, 2 weeks ago, has diminished, especially because we haven't heard a positive report so far. Like they're working on it kind of thing. All we've heard is they're far apart, all this stuff. And in the midst of all of that, we're seeing all these other wide receivers get paid, which, we're kind of reading the tea leaves and assuming that, hey, the asking price for Brandon Aiyuk just went up, or even if it's a couple of million, all that stuff does impact Brandon Aiyuk. And do the 49ers still want to pay him what he's asking for? I think that's the question. I still think it gets done. I think there's still a lot of time between now and training camp. I do think it'll happen right before training camp or that first week, very similar to Debo, where he was there and they eventually got that deal done in that first week. But Brandon Aiyuk so far is not there. And this is just minicamp, but minicamp is mandatory and he is subject to fines by not being there. So he made the decision to not be there. And so, I think that tells us a bit about where things stand. And Brandon Aiyuk has been trying to keep himself busy. He posted this on his Instagram story. I don't know if you guys can see that, but it says OTA day 5, and it's Brandon Aiyuk running on a baseball field, catching a deep ball. Good for him, I guess. But OTA's finished, man. It's minicamp now, all right? So he's trying to keep himself in shape, but as other players have said in the past, Nick Bosa most recently, saying that you just can't replicate actual football going up against someone else, right? And so that's the difference between what Brandon Aiyuk is doing, where it's just he's catching balls against air and not actually doing a lot of football activities, drills. There's only so much you can replicate by yourself.
Yeah, and if Nick Bosa has been on record saying that, yeah, maybe there was value, because we were all like, oh yeah, he knows how to work out. He's intense, he's going to be. And I was like, no, you can't replicate football action. There's just, things that are going to happen that you have to be it has to come in progressions. You can't just go from A to B, from just doing drills and things like that to suddenly being in a game. That's why that's what happened with 2020, right? We had all those injuries afterwards because we missed training camp. We didn't have it. There is value in that. So this is my thing, is not only is it good for injury prevention to have this time, right? But also it's good for being able to gel with your teammates. And we have new rookies coming in, new teammates coming in. And the biggest thing for me is we didn't have Brock last summer for him and Brock to really have an off season together. Like, now Brock is healthy. Would love to have Brandon Aiyuk. And I think it benefits Brandon Aiyuk to be there, because honestly, I do think that whether we like it or not, next year we're losing somebody if it doesn't happen this year. And by somebody, I mean, it's either going to be Debo or Brandon Aiyuk. I just don't see how we're going to be able to keep all these folks when we have to give a contract to our quarterback. So come on, BA, let's do this. I think you could be the next man up, man. You know, and I think it could be Debo. I don't know. It's really tough because they're all quality players and they would be blessed to be on any kind of team. They'd be an asset to the team, and hate for them to never be in anything other than red and gold, for sure.
And that continues to be the dilemma for the 49ers, of them being like such a deep team. It's like you can't keep everyone. And so still expect this deal to get done. It's still a matter of when. We don't have any sense of that right now. So we'll continue waiting on that. But the 49ers are making some other moves in regards to signings. They signed another tight end, finally. I mean, Logan Thomas, former Washington Commanders tight end, was signed to a 1-year deal for the 49ers. He's a veteran. He's going to be turning 33 real soon. But for the Commanders, he was their tight end 1, right? He was their starter. And so in San Francisco, obviously, he wouldn't be expected to be the tight end 1. 49ers have George Kittle. But it would be great to know that if George Kittle misses any time, which is probably like a decent bet that he will miss at least 1 game per season, right? I think it's good to know that you have a guy like Logan Thomas who has the experience of being a reliable pass catching threat with Washington. That's what the 49ers have been missing out of their TE2. And I think we know after Kittle, it's definitely been missing just reliability. You know, we have question marks with Cameron Latu and Braden Willis outside of Kittle. So what did you make of this move? I think it definitely addressed a need here, right?
This is an interesting move to me. This guy was a quarterback. Like, what kind of level of athleticism? Like, we go from someone like, think about Tom Brady, right? You could barely touch the guy, right? To a tight end. Like, it's so crazy that you would go from those two positions. Obviously, really incredibly smart, really can understand scheme and understand the big picture of a play and know where his position should be. I think this is interesting because I think Kyle might be making another hybrid here. What do you think?
Interesting. Hybrid, like tight end, wide receiver, or
call it the back end.
I mean,
quarterback, tight end. Get it, guys?
Quarterback. Okay, I
back
see what
end.
you did there.
Instead of a wide
getting wacky on me. No, I mean, he could definitely have like a trick play up his sleeve, and Logan Thomas could definitely be an option. But no, like I mean, I think if anything, I kind of thought that maybe they're wanting to move away from having so many 2 tight end sets and, maybe having more wide receivers, which in that regard, like Logan Thomas has experience lining up outside in the slot, in line, you can move them around. And so I think with that, Kyle Shanahan has a lot of flexibility with Logan Thomas. So I think that's another thing that made this attractive to Kyle and wanting to add that, in addition to the obvious reason of like, hey, we don't really know what Cam Latu and Braden Willis is going to pan out to be.
Yeah, this is still not, I mean, I still can't hang my hat on this, right? I think it's just going to be a dogfight for the tight end 2 position. I mean, George Kittle is such a standout, but he is getting dinged up. We do need somebody as in that second position.
So who are the but Dezi, who are the dogs fighting for that?
They're fighting over a milk bone. It's not like a dog fight, okay? So
that's fair, but I mean, it's like, I guess in the way I look at it is like, because I haven't seen enough from Cam Latu. Willis at least got on the field, his rookie season, although he didn't record any catches, right? But it's just like I don't know what those guys are and what they're going to be to like respect that they might be in competition for TE2.
Yeah. No.
Yeah. But speaking of Cam Latu, we did actually get an update on him from Kyle Shanahan, who did say he should be ready around camp. That's kind of like he kept it short with Cam Latu. He was also asked if he suffered any setbacks, to which Kyle Shanahan said no. And I think like I don't want to say it's odd, but I think the reason that was asked is because for him to still not be healthy enough to be out there, it's kind of like, damn, well, what the hell happened to him? And I know a couple episodes ago, we were kind of speculating on that, right? Like, why has this taken so long? And there wasn't a lot of details on his original injury when it came out, but, at least now we have something to go off of. Should be ready by camp.
Yeah, we'll just have to wait and see what that even looks like. So we'll know more once we see him out there and see him moving. We did get an update as well on, I think Charvarius Ward was talking about his injury, and who am I missing? There's somebody else that was. Who are we talking about? I got to look at our text.
Yeah, we exchanged show notes via text. Yeah, I got.
Oh no, this was it. We were just talking about no setbacks. That was it.
Yeah, and then we are going to talk about Hufanga here in a sec as well.
That's who it was. Huff should be coming back, but I'll let you talk about that one.
Yeah, which that is great news as well. I want to play his actual clip, so let me just pull that up for a second here, if I can locate it. Here we go.
That's still kind of.
So obviously, give or take any time, but the goal is to be ready by week 1. The goal is to be in training camp, not at the very beginning, but to ramp me up correctly, just so it's not just to throw you out there to the wolves and good luck. But try to be smart with it. We've had plenty of conversations with the training staff and putting me in the best possible situation to succeed for myself, and then try to help the team as well. So.
All right, so Huff,
yeah, that's about right.
Working towards training camp, week 1.
Week 1, yeah. So that's about right. He's at 7 months. Usually, sometime around 6 months post-op from ACL injury repair of an ACL, they start to work on sport-specific drills and things like that. So I still think he's a little ways away from getting into the huddle and being actual football ready, but you will see him do more non-contact sports specific stuff going on now. And then as he progresses through, there is an opportunity. He'll be about 9 months by the time the season starts, somewhere around there, 9-10 months. So we'll see. It really will be a 50-50 shot as to whether we actually see him at week 1.
Yeah, and I think that's reasonable, right? Like, I think it is. I often am reminded and remind others that return to play does not equal return to performance, and the 49ers would be wise to be patient. It sounds like Hufanga is being patient as well with his recovery, like not trying to push himself to be ready for training camp and rather looking at the bigger picture for him to be ready for week 1 or around that time, right? So I think based on what he said, it sounds like they're going to ramp him up around training camp, which similar to the Brock Purdy thing, there were small steps that he kind of had to accomplish, some boxes he had to check before moving to the next thing, and that's how it goes. So I think training camp's going to be where we start to see that small uptick, but looking at the bigger picture, already till week 1, and I think that's fine. That's reasonable. The 49ers, I think, have prepared themselves for that as well. I mean, drafting Malik Mustafa, they already have Jair Brown from last season. We know that dude carries himself like a vet. I have no worries about him. And then bringing back George Odom, another veteran. So they have options. Speaking of Malik Mustafa, though, I just wanted to share this small quote that Hufanga gave us about Mustafa. He said, "Beefy. Man, that dude is just like outlift everyone. He's like a mini Trey Greenlaw, how they walk around with this presence." I like it. I mean, I can see it. I mean, Mustafa's like a big dude. He's thick, like he's got a lot of muscle to him. And so clearly one of the things that stands out about Mustafa. So I just thought it was cool. Hufanga, just giving his thoughts on him. And he also had some high praise for Jair Brown. So I think the 49ers will be okay, even if Hufanga isn't ready, week 1.
Yeah, I'm not very, I think I'm not as, there we go. Did he say that? There was somebody else, Invader 49er, Hufanga should start on PUP and Greenlaw on IR.
Yeah.
Greenlaw, guys, I'm sorry. I just, he's my favorite. Like, I'm never going to tell you what I really think about this, but just know that my gut does not feel good this season for Greenlaw. Not saying he's not going to
season.
Not that he'll be out the whole season. There's something about his physique, his tissue structure that I just worry about. And I'll leave it at that. Cause I'm, I don't want to, that's my dude. I love me some Greenlaw. So I don't really want to say too much, but I just know that like, there's something that's just not sitting great in my gut with him. And I hope I'm wrong. I want to be wrong. Seriously want to be wrong. And maybe Steph, I'll tell you off camera, what I'm thinking, just so that you know it. Yes.
We all hope Dezi is wrong.
I will gladly be happy to be wrong. So,
but I think it's good to like set the expectation though, with fans, and just keep that in mind that we are going to be like waiting all season, I think, for like, when is Greenlaw going to come back? And I think we got to be realistic that there is a possibility that maybe he does not come back this season. Also, going back to the return to play does not equal return to performance. Even if he is cleared, doesn't mean he should get back on the field right away if he doesn't look like that same dude. So, but there's a long road of recovery for Greenlaw. Dezi, did you happen to see the what was it, the Heart Fund thing that they do every year, the Gold Heart Fund, or like the
No, I didn't see
event that they have? Because Greenlaw was at the event. He actually accepted an award from Fred Warner, and he was walking, like, obviously still like kind of gingerly, but I guess like early on in that recovery, do you need crutches, I imagine?
No, you're in a walking boot. So usually
Okay.
post-op, you're in a boot, and in the boot you are in. So instead of like a boot, your foot's flat. When you're healing from an Achilles tendon injury, you tend to have a wedge. So it kind of puts you up, your heel is up. And what that does is it allows there to not be tension on the Achilles, for there to be where they've repaired. Let's pretend. All right, we're going to do this. We're going to pretend. We're going to pretend where my two fists are is the suture line of your Achilles. Okay. And so when you have too much tension, you're going to pull here on this incision site where the suture line is of the Achilles tendon. So by lifting the heel a little bit, you release any kind of tension on that suture line and allow it to scar in really well and heal appropriately. So that's kind of why you're in that wedge, but you're in a boot. So he may feel off level a little bit, but you should be able to be okay without. Some people will have crutches. He's an athlete. I think he'd be okay, especially at this point. As you recover, you get layers of those wedges come out. So gently, you kind of come back to a flat surface. And then from there, once you've met certain milestones, then they start to rehab you and put you into more of tension building situations and strengthening, all those types of things. So where he is in that process, also whether or not he's had a recovery or a repair, much like what Aaron Rodgers had, right? So we don't know if it's that kind of new technique that he was able to do, because sometimes that's not able to be done depending on the type of tear, where the tear is, et cetera, et cetera. So we don't know those kind of details. And honestly, I think I saw video of Aaron Rodgers and he didn't look that crisp. And he's much further out as well. So I'm not sure, guys. We'll see how he progresses. I would hope that it would be mid to late season for his return, but would rather him kind of stay out and get a full recovery if we need to, because he's a dude and I'd love to see him come back as good as he was, if not better.
And to clarify, it was at the Dwight Clark Legacy event. They do this annually now. That's where he accepted an award. Let me just play like a short video. You can see him walking. It doesn't look like he's in a boot because he's wearing a suit. I don't imagine it would be under the suit, but I can't tell. It's hard to tell. So let me just share this really quick.
Yeah.
He's not in a boot.
Yeah. So not in the boot, but as you can see, like still limping. And so I don't know if that video like tells you anything as to where he is in his, recovery so far. I know he mentioned like he's feeling good. So I mean, you got to take that with a grain of salt in terms of like where he is in his recovery as well. He could feel good relative to where he's at.
That looks about what would be expected. I mean, you can come out of a boot around 3 months. If that was a few weeks ago, he's somewhere around that 3 to 4 month, I think, post-op. I think he had surgery in February. So that's appropriate. I think that's appropriate. And, I wouldn't say that, you can't make any kind of claims as to, oh, he's, weeks ahead of his progress or anything like that. But that seems appropriate. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, as always, we love that insight that you bring. And every time I'm like, okay, she's getting going. I'm going to pick her brain on what she thinks about this. So I had to bring up that video. But speaking of another defensive player, pivoting away from some of the injuries, all right? We're done talking about injuries. But Nick Sorensen did speak about Renardo Green. He kind of gave an update on how Renardo Green has been looking, and I thought it was pretty positive. So I'm going to share that here as well.
But with Renardo Green, how have you seen him kind of fitting in a little bit with the veterans, and how he's putting everything up?
I've been really happy with Renardo. The cool thing is he's moving. He's been doing both nickel and corner, and it's not a lot of time, right? It's a certain amount of practices, and hasn't fully been a nickel, so he's really embraced the challenge of it. That's the best part. Like, it's never perfect because now all of a sudden we're teaching you all these different coverages, but there's also run fits too. And then that changes. And guess what? You can't like fully trigger and, feel the physicality of the line because there's rules and those guys aren't playing the same. But just with him, it's just the mentality and the competitiveness that I love. We knew the movement skill was there, and you see it in man-to-man stuff, and he gets those too. But just like, he's embraced any challenge anything that's hard, I think he's embraced, and he's kind of attacked it and willingly been like, no, man, I want more of that. And that's really been awesome.
That's pretty high praise too, as well. Just like, I think it speaks to Renardo Green's work ethic. And Dezi, I see you smiling. I know you're probably liking to hear that about Renardo Green, right?
Yes. And guys, for those who don't know, I live in Florida. So we are big on our FSU in Florida. So we got Ricky Pearsall from Florida, and we got Renardo Green from FSU. And I'm not a big college football fan. Thanks to all of you guys and Twitter Nation that's gotten me into watching some college ball, because the college ball I ended up watching was FSU. And so I think their team was just unbelievable this year. I do think they got slighted. I won't reopen any wounds for those who are big time college football fans and talk about why they didn't end up in the top 4. But I'm excited. I'm excited. I think he's a dog. I can't wait to see what he does for us in the secondary, and let's go.
Let's go. Yeah, really, really excited about Renardo Green and what I've heard about him so far. And, just the fact that he can handle what's being thrown at his plate. And it's not like, no, like that's enough. It's like, yeah, like bring it on kind of thing. And that's really exciting. But that's, again, that I think that speaks to the type of player that he is. And when I did a show with I think it's Brian Smith, he covers FSU, and that was kind of in line with how he described Renardo Green as a player too. So to just kind of hear, now Nick Sorensen say some things like this, it tells me that the transition to the NFL is going well, because it sounds like he's still the same dude. So I think that's another positive as well. Speaking of Renardo Green, and speaking of Ricky Pearsall, both of the rookies, 2 top picks for the 49ers, Tim Kawakami mentioned this on Twitter. He said is the best 11 on 11 rep of minicamp, in his opinion. Ricky Pearsall lined up in the slot, matched up against Renardo Green in tight coverage. Pearsall made a good post move with maybe a slight push. Green grabbed some jersey and stay right with him. Purdy threw elsewhere. That was a real NFL rep. But I think these are the battles that these two are really going to be going up against, throughout camp, in mini camp already. So this is exciting. The bit of like iron sharpens iron for those top 2 picks for the 49ers. And so far, it seems like the praise on both of those players has been real good.
Yeah, let's go. I'd love to be in the locker room just to hear the trash talk too, because I'm sure it's some real good combo going down right there.
and by the way, I think this is a win for Renardo Green here. If you guys didn't really pick that up from the tweet, it's like Purdy looked at it. He said, I'm not throwing to that. That's really tight coverage there. And so I know also hearing Green grabbing some jersey, where a few of us have pointed that out, that obviously he did struggle with pass interference in college. So that's going to be something that I think will be an adjustment. I think once we get to the point of having refs, in camp, in training camp, you get refs, in these 11 on 11 drills. So if there's something egregious, they're going to call it. And I think there's going to be an adjustment period for him, but I love that there's sticky coverage, and I love that, it's so much so that Purdy's like, hell no, I'm not throwing there. So this is just great all around. And then Kyle Shanahan was also asked about Ricky Pearsall, and what he had to say about him was, quote, he's doing a good job. He's got really good hands, so he's rarely going to have a drop. We're getting him a lot of reps. He's getting a lot of different routes, trying all the positions, and we've been really impressed with how he started off, end quote. I'm excited that he's getting a lot of reps, and obviously that has to do with Brandon Aiyuk not being there. I think that's the silver lining of Aiyuk not being there, is hey, your first round pick, Ricky Pearsall, can, get to work and not feel like he's in someone else's shadow kind of thing. He could be the main guy in camp, build that connection with Brock Purdy, and it definitely feels like he has so far. This is big praise coming from Kyle.
I was excited once I started to understand who he really is as far as Pearsall as an athlete. And again, I don't watch a lot of college ball, but being in Florida, you hear things. And as soon as he got drafted by the 49ers, I got all kinds of texts and dings of like, uh-oh, you guys got a dog. You guys got a dog. Pretty Ricky. So I was excited. I think that he's got some real talent. It'll be interesting to see what happens with him with Brock at the helm. So let's go. Like, I get pumped talking about these types of things. So let's bring in that fresh blood. Let's see what's there, because we got some bills to pay coming up in these years ahead. And so we need to start figuring that part out too.
Don't we know it? And I think also what makes this draft class so far so exciting is that I feel like it's been a couple of years since we've been this excited about some of the draft picks. Like last year, the player we were probably like most not excited, but like, I guess most invested in was Jake Moody, because he was like one of the higher picks. And it's like, that's not exciting. Like, if we're being honest, like that, I don't want to be excited about a kicker. But that's kind of like all we had. And from there, it was a lot of like developmental picks. It was a lot of like, I don't know if I see how that fits, but let's see how it goes kind of picks. And that's kind of how it played out in that offseason and in the first season for those guys. Now, at least so far, it's still early, right? These guys aren't wearing pads, you know, it's not a lot of like contact or anything like that. But, you know, it seems like the news, the updates on these guys has been nothing but positive, you know? And again, Dezi, you're like smiling ear to ear. I'm like, you know, this gets us pumped.
Yes. And I have another, like, do we start this rumor? Like, does Renardo Green take over Charvarius's Ward role at some point, since that contract's coming up soon?
This season, Dezi?
I don't know.
You see it that soon? You know, that's crazy, right?
It's wacky. We can talk wacky things on Wacky Wednesday.
It is wacky. I mean, look, I think we got to be realistic with the fact that, yes, this is the last season, at least contract-wise, of Mooney Ward and Lenore. I predict one of those guys is going to get an extension, but not both of them, right? So 49ers is going to have to choose. And this season, how this season goes for both of those guys, I think will like dictate that. Also, Renardo Green, how he pans out, I think will definitely influence that as well. So I'm just excited that Renardo Green is getting the looks at, it seems like nickel. They want him to start off at nickel. They already know he could play outside. So him getting that experience is good. Maybe, I don't know, maybe that means Lenore would be the guy on the outs, because he's been the guy that's played nickel and outside, and now you're kind of coaching up Renardo Green to be able to do both as well. I don't know, but maybe you always just like to have that versatility no matter what. I mean, I'm not mad at that as well. So just something to think about. It's the reality of the situation with that corner room, and they got a lot of depth this year, and there's going to be a lot of competition beyond, you know, Mooney Ward and Lenore. So that's one battle to watch, you know, this entire off season. But what other battle are you kind of watching, Dezi, as far as, you know, just dogs going at it, dog fights? I
think it's the 49ers front office versus Brandon Aiyuk's agent. I'm still like, can we get that done?
Okay, that's fair. I mean, that's fair. That is one dog fight we are intently watching.
I mean, I guess aside from that, like linebacker, right? Because I don't know what's happening with Greenlaw. So I guess that's something to keep an eye on. I don't know. I keep hearing things about the offensive line and, you know, whether or not there's holes that can just be patched up with plays and double coverage and, you know, plug and play here and move this person and shifting and things like that. But I think it's just, and I don't know. I think for sure it's going to be, that one's my favorite. But otherwise, I don't think there's
waiting to see like what kind of transpires out of I think
Camp.
like, this mini camp. Yeah.
I'm going to wait for the camp rumors to come through and hear some stories before we squeeze that juice.
Exactly. I think that's a good way to look at it. Now, just one more thing I wanted to show, and it was only because Leon Sandcastle, shout out Leon Sandcastle. I've already complimented his username or their username several times, but I will continue to do so. And the
picture is fantastic.
And the picture, yeah, and the picture to go with it. I mean, you have to have the picture if you're gonna go that route. But they said Kyle was impressed with Nacua, speaking of Puka Nacua, and wanted his own tough, nasty route runner with great hands. And so that reminded me of a tweet I saw right before I went live. And it was that Larry Krueger was on 95.7 The Game. Larry Krueger, credentialed media member. He is there at these practices. He said, quote, "It looks like the Niners may have their version of Stafford to Puka." Talking about Brock Purdy and Ricky Pearsall. Now, that's crazy. Like, you better be right. If
those are some big shoes. That's some big shoes.
Those are some big shoes. Like, so that if you're putting that out there, like you better be sure of it, because like, yes, that's not just any comparison you can make.
I feel like Pearsall is a little bit more finesse than Puka. Like, I just feel like there's maybe a better flow, but I think Puka is just, he's a incredible human. Like, just, I don't know. There's too many physical attributes there that don't exactly measure up. Just a different athlete, but I can see why he's making that. I can see where he's drawing that line and making those connections there. I don't hate it.
Like I see the comparison. Like I get it. Yeah. Like I see where it's coming from. I just don't know if that's going to come to fruition. And if it doesn't, like, then that's a hell of a thing to have said. You know? But I mean,
unless it's said on Wacky Wednesday.
We can say it on Wacky Wednesday. It is Wednesday, so maybe he was channeling his Wacky Wednesday.
Yeah,
so
yeah, we'll let that fly.
Pass. I mean, I hope it's true. Like, I hope that ends up being like a legit comparison as soon as the season gets rolling. I would love nothing more than that. Absolutely, that would be fire.
Yeah, I mean, I scored a lot because I put Puka on my fantasy team. Like, as soon as he started to turn, like, saw a little something, I was like, put him on the roster. So, I mean, maybe Smart. I just start off to see what Pearsall does. Well, we have to see what's happening with Brandon Aiyuk first. I don't know. There's too much to figure out before I start on my lineup for fantasy football. Getting ahead of myself here.
I know. I'm excited for this year of fantasy football. We need to get those drafts going. I'm ready to go. But Dezi, thank you so much for joining me today. It's always good to have you on Wacky Wednesday. Yeah, and all of you that tuned in, you guys kept the live chat popping. You know I always appreciate that. Make sure you like this video. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Audio listeners, leave a rating, leave a review.
I have one more thing to say. So if you guys enjoy the medical part of what I provide here on Steph's show, I am actually starting I'm bringing up a little podcast that's going to come out. And I'm getting ready to have an interview with a physician tomorrow talking about CTE. So we have a couple of important topics we're going to cover here in the off season. So once that's ready to go, guys, I'll announce it here on Steph's show when it's going to go live so that you guys can be the first ones to access that information.
That's awesome. Yeah. As you guys know, Dezi always has some great information. Like, she's super knowledgeable in this field, and I'm very fortunate to have her on the show. And yes, Dezi, absolutely. Let us know when that is available. Would love to promote it here on the show as well. I mean, let people know your channel. Like, you have a YouTube channel.
I do. It's dead in the off season because I do too many things, but definitely as the season comes around, we'll be up and running. It's Girlfriends in Football. So it's myself, my girlfriend. I'm a physician assistant for those who don't know. So I've been practicing medicine for 20 years, over 20 years. And one of my co-hosts is a a physical therapist, a doctor of physical therapy. So we talk about all of football and injuries and things. And then my third friend who's on there with me is our college specialist. She is FSU. So whoever posted in there, they were excited about my FSU statement. She is an FSU Seminole. So, so that's a little bit about me, Girlfriends in Football. I am Coach Dezi on social media as well.
There you have it. Well, yeah, make sure you guys tune in to Dezi's YouTube channel. She'll be having great content there as well. But guys, it's Wacky Wednesday. Hope you guys have a good rest of your Wednesday. But for now, peace.